Good
Yep.
morning. Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live. This is a volunteer led program that we do daily here on AOC Community Media, Channel 1, as well as Cypress Street Radio and live on YouTube. And as I said, volunteer led. Our one of our longtime volunteers, Bruce Cohen, joining us from his home studio this morning to read articles of local and state news from the Acadiana Advocate. Good morning, Bruce. Thank you for joining us.
Well, very good morning to you, Mandy. How are you doing today? You're
Oh,
okay?
yeah. So far, so good. It's Friday. You
Great.
can't go wrong with a Friday. It's the best day to wake
TG,
up.
TGIF, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, especially during this time, TGIF. Well, thank you so much, Mandy, and thank you for always being, for the last couple of weeks, being my engineer. I really appreciate it, being able to do this from home. So thank you, and a good morning, Acadiana. It is Friday, September 4th, 2020. It's been a very different year so far, one could say, very different. So we're going to just sort of jump right into the news. A locked down, tight-lipped Lafayette struggles over Pellerin death by Ken Stickney, staff writer. Trafer Pellerin's slow and fatal walk up Evangeline Thruway didn't cause the social and political fractures that have seemingly widened in Lafayette since that hot August evening, but have sure revealed them. Pellerin, 31, may have suffered from mental health issues, according to his family, which could have made the threat he posed to others seem larger. Some observers saw him carrying a knife on the highway about 8 p.m. August 21st, ignoring commands from Lafayette police officers to drop his weapon. If his mental state was the reason he would not, perhaps could not, heed authorities' commands, they might have also made him impervious to the stun guns police fired at him to no avail. An independent autopsy commissioned by Pellerin's family and released Thursday suggests Pellerin was shot 10 times and was handcuffed after the shooting, according to a news release from the family's lawyer. The statement also said there was no evidence of stun gun use on Pellerin's body. Former Lafayette City Parish Council member Kenneth Boudreau said police might have used other means than that final one, at least 11 gunshots, as heard on a bystander video, to slow or halt the danger an armed Pellerin might have posed to the public. Boudreau said police had pepper spray, police dogs, and batons, but did not use them. Video not yet released by state police, whose troopers are investigating Pellerin's death, might explain more to the public, which has been denied much information about that night, Boudreau noted. The sole resource they used was ineffective with the person in the state he was in, he said. Other things that might have been effective might have been minimized. Whatever police did or whatever they failed to do, the state police probe may eventually reveal much more about what happened that night. The murky circumstances surrounding that tragic situation have spun new conjecture about what happened. These theories seem to have taken Pellerin's story into new directions. That's what happens when facts in a controversial case are slow to emerge. People sometimes from political or social fringes provide their own narratives. Citizens are understandably concerned, regardless of which side of the issue you find yourself on, said Pearson Cross, a political scientist at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Some people want to inflame the situation to make points or to gain an advantage. Some people can't see a fire without looking for lighter fluid. The lighter fluid has been applied liberally. Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory angered the residents when his early statements about the shooting failed to mention the victim by name or express sympathy for his family. In early protests, police were quick to meet demonstrators in riot gear and use chemical dispersants, a tactic that has been shown to escalate tensions. On Saturday, some 3 dozen police, and public safety units descended on Acadiana Mall in South Louisiana as employees scurried out and the mall closed for the day. Sergeant Paul Mouton, a police spokesman, told the Advocate that not only did he not know why officers were at the mall, he did not even know they were there. That same day, a North Lafayette protester apparently frustrated that Guillory would not publicly discuss Pellerin's case, set up a one-grill barbecue in front of the mayor president's home to cook a meal and invite him to talk. Instead, police were summoned and the woman was arrested. When a photographer from the Advocate tried to take a photo of the protest site, police stationed on the public street told them it had been closed to the public. 2 days later, an internal memo leaked at City Hall suggested that local agencies charged with helping others in need should not offer help to out-of-towners who evacuated because of Hurricane Laura. The stated reason: protesters had left the city vulnerable to outsiders. Guillory also issued an executive order that appeared to shut down protests downtown, threatening hefty fines and jail time. The ACLU of Louisiana charged that Guillory's actions represented violations of people's right to protest, and that the government was seeking to make criminals of people who felt that Pallorin's death was unjust. Could it get any more contentious? Well, on Tuesday night outside Lafayette City Hall, Black Lives Matter activists occupied one corner of a parking lot, chanting and waving placards near a live barbecue grill. Less than 100 yards away, some 50 heavily armed members of a group that identified himself as a Louisiana Cajun militia stood at the ready, saying they were there to tamp down violence. And U.S. Representative Clay Higgins out of Lafayette, Republican, incited some emotions when he suggested this week that if armed protesters arrived in the area, they would be met with lethal force. A Houston man has suggested a black militant group might join the Lafayette protest, and Higgins' Facebook post included a photo of an armed black man. Cross suggested that legal leadership has been overreacting to public protests, worsening an apparent escalating public discord. By offering few facts about the Pellerin shooting, by seeking to subdue or prevent protests, by failing to engage the public about the shooting and perceived threats from outsiders, Guillory has seemed to only fan the flames. Something needs to happen, Cross said. Ignoring the issue is not the answer, nor is being heavy-handed. Cross suggested that while the barbecue protest fell into political theater, the unyielding response just raised the ante. Boudreaux said it's the type of stunt protesters organize when the public feels ignored. Kevin Blanchard, a longtime community leader and former Lafayette official, suggested that the foundation on unrest here has been forming for a long time, perhaps since the collapse of the oil and gas industry in Acadiana. Once Lafayette was the center of the energy service industry, but low prices and overproduction have led to layoffs and government cutbacks. City needs to focus on its economic future, Blanchard said, but it also must recognize the need for building a livable community that includes appealing public parks and amenities. Guillory has attempted to unilaterally close 4 recreation centers in the mostly black area of North Lafayette and local attractions like the endangered Lafayette Science Museum. To attract different manufacturing jobs, we must still have good schools to provide for high quality of life, he said. To high-tech companies from out of state, having a science museum is not a luxury, it's a must for their families. Blanchard said for white Lafayette residents, the pushback over Pellerin's death might be surprising, but for a lot of black folks, it's something that has been a frustration forever. I try to remember that I don't have those same lived experiences as black people do. We have to double down on being empathetic, double down on being careful listeners, he said. Blanchard also perceives a generational shift that might permit more open and honest community discussions. For example, he said, several generations have attended integrated schools. This might be the time to intensify listening skills, engage in public discussions, and figure how to get from the initial recognition of the conflict to some level of social cohesion. The frustration, he said, comes from a lack of openness from Lafayette's elected leaders. The more people feel they are being ignored, the more frustrated they get, he said. That's just not black people, that's everyone. It's time to end that silence, Boudreaux said. He said the most strident public outcry over the police killing of George Floyd in May began to die down after information was released and officers began to question the use of the force in that area. If neither state police nor the Lafayette Police Department are providing answers, Boudreaux said, People come up with their own conclusions by viewing social media. Public leaders, he said, have to recognize that none of that happens if answers are provided and information is put out. Publicize the available video, he said, and people will find the investigation more credible. If you put the video out, you're going to calm a lot of people, he said. No comment is not an option. It's not as if it will never be made available. Let's put this behind us. Let's go and press play. Citing autopsy, family challenges official story by Leslie Turk, continuing with the Trayford Pellerin story. After police fired 10 bullets into Trayford Pellerin, they handcuffed him, the attorney representing Pellerin's family said on Thursday. Citing an independent autopsy, the attorney challenged the official account of the events leading up to Pellerin's killing and continued to call for authorities to release body camera footage and other documentary evidence that would clarify what happened. Attorney Ronald Haley said he personally counted what appeared to be several bullet holes in the wall of the North Lafayette Shell Station, where Pellerin, a 31-year-old black man, was shot and killed by Lafayette police on August 21st as he attempted to enter the store. Haley, who lives in Lafayette but works in Baton Rouge, said another bullet hit the glass door, shattering it. Haley said he questions whether Pellerin was shot with a stun gun. The autopsy report does not reveal any of the signature mark stun guns often leave behind. Although the forensic pathologist found no evidence on Pellerin's fully clothed body that he was shocked, that lack of evidence isn't definitive, Haley said. I just got off the phone with the pathologist, he said on Tuesday. She said that doesn't mean they didn't tase him. On the night of the shootings, officials say Pellerin had been hit with a stun gun, and a day after the shooting, Louisiana State Police again said in a news release that Pellerin was shot with a stun gun. Officers deployed tasers as they pursued Pellerin, but they were ineffective, the agency wrote. The following day, Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory reiterated that Pellerin was shot after multiple tries to subdue the knife-wielding suspect through the use of tasers. Additionally, a bystander who filmed the shooting can be heard in the video remarking the police were using stun guns on Pellerin. The unidentified woman who captured Pellerin is walking away from police and into the Shell Station parking lot says on video that Pellerin is carrying a knife and isn't obeying police commands. Get on the ground, she pleads in the video. They're tasing him. She says, growing more concerned. He's not even doing nothing. Citing a public records exemption, local officials aren't releasing any additional information. According to Louisiana's public records law, the exemption applies to pending criminal litigation or any criminal litigation which can be reasonably anticipated. Outside of comments made the night of the shooting and state police's initial news release, which states that Pellerin was still armed with a knife when he attempted to enter the occupied convenience store, no other details have been made public. Pellerin had no other defensive markings, and nothing in the report suggested Pellerin had been in any sort of scuffle. Haley said there were both brush burns present on Pellerin's knees as a result of him falling to the ground after being shot. The spray of bullets covered much of his body, including his right arm and left index finger, chest, right hip, abdomen, and both thighs. One bullet hit in the mid-lateral right back, according to the autopsy. Haley also described cruel, uncaring, unjust bruising on Pellerin's wrist. This means that after Lafayette police shot Mr. Pellerin 10 times and he lay there dying on the concrete, those officers handcuffed Mr. Pellerin's limp and lifeless body. Haley wrote in a news release on Wednesday. Haley also provided grainy images showing what appears to be handcuffs on Pellerin after the shooting. Handcuffing a gravely injured man may be the Lafayette Police Department's policy, Haley said, but it is still inhumane. The practice of handcuffing after a shooting has been common but controversial in much of the country, particularly when the shooting victim appears to be incapacitated. Jacob Blake, a black man shot and paralyzed by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just a day after Pellerin's shooting death, was handcuffed to his hospital bed for nearly a week because he had an outstanding felony warrant. Haley said he believes the grainy photograph, which appears to have been taken directly from a cell phone screen, shows Pellerin's handcuffed as officers render aid. Pellerin's family paid for the autopsy, Haley said. It is a political and moral failing of our elected officials and the Lafayette police that Mr. Pellerin's family had to incur the significant expense of an independent autopsy simply to begin to get answers about why and how their loved one died, Haley wrote in his release. The autopsy conducted by American Forensics of Mesquite, Texas, is preliminary, and a final report is pending results of toxicology testing. Haley said more transparency can easily put much of what is in dispute to rest. The attorney sent a public records request to state police and the Lafayette Police Department to release body camera and other footage from the scene, as well as from businesses and bystanders. He said he will again make the appeal when he and the family meet with Guillory and Lafayette Police Chief Scott Morgan on Friday morning. And now we'll go to our first public service announcement for the morning. You've probably been hearing me, you've been listening in, you've been hearing me talk about the Festival Words fundraiser called Words for You, Zoom performance. In this disconnected, crazy world right now, we invite everyone to create some magic with us. That's Festival of Words. The Festival of Words is getting to know you. On September 10th, the Festival of Words holds a presentation of new original works by 45 authors. The event is a culmination of fundraising in which the public commission writers to create, or the public commissions writers to create personalized poems, stories, and songs. We are thrilled to have a diversity of authors, from poet laureates to beginners from Lafayette to Church Point to New York City. Come listen to these one-of-a-kind premiere performances on our online cafe, grab a drink, snacks, and sit back for an evening of fun. Some of the presenters you'll be hearing that evening are former poet laureates for the state of Louisiana, Jack Bedell and Terrell Bork, well-known columnist Dominic Cross, Charles Garrett, Toby Daspit, Cornelius Eady, Charles Claudel Garrett I, Valentine Pierce, Donnie Rose, a very big figure in the Baton Rouge poetry market, Annalisa Saloy, Sandra Sarr, Tim Siebels, Tyler Roberts Sheldon, Margaret Simone, John Warren Smith, who is our current poet laureate for the state of Louisiana, and many other celebrated authors. Go to the Facebook event page for Words for You. The link to the Zoom Cafe will be available the week of the event. Or you can contact Martha Garner at Festival Words or FOWMartha@gmail.com, or simply call 337-804-2482 for more information. Funds raised by Words for You celebrate and contribute to the 13th Annual Festival of Words. Festival of Words brings established authors from all over the world to Acadiana to give public readings, writing workshops in community centers, and public schools during the first week of November. These funds will help to ensure the continuing expansion and success of these programs. This year's festival will be virtual and will feature graphic memoirist Robin Ha, award-winning poet Erica Mittner, and Louisiana Poet Laureate John Warner Smith. Okay, getting back into our news. City Parish sues man behind fake Antifa Facebook events in Lafayette by Megan Wyatt, staff writer. The Lafayette City Parish government is suing the person behind satirical Antifa Facebook events that authorities responded to this summer in River Ranch and at the Acadiana Mall. The lawsuit, filed Monday, says the hoaxes have cost taxpayers a considerable amount as law enforcement investigated and responded to both. The lawsuit also points to fake Antifa events in small cities across the country that, even after being debunked by local leaders, have sometimes prompted residents to use guns to guard their cities. Defendant John Merrifield said the lawsuit takes social media posts out of context and misconstrues his motivations. Merrifield, who turns 29 next week, said he's using satire in his digital platform as a form of activism and protest. It's to expose how out of order their priorities are in regards to how they protect the rich virus, how they protect the poor, Merrifield said in a phone interview. And then more recently, it's in regards to how the city is not doing anything that matters to the people. The murder, the extrajudicial killing of Trayford Pellerin that matters to people. People want answers, and the city is being very dismissive of that. Merrifield learned of the lawsuit Thursday morning when he was contacted by a reporter. He said he's seeking legal representation, but he doesn't think the lawsuit has merit. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they are trying to sue me over this, Merrifield said. And let me just check my bank account real quick. Okay, yeah, they can have all $300 of my dollars. I have $300 to my name, and they can have it. City parish government is seeking an unspecified amount from Merrifield for damages of less than $75,000. Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory mentioned the lawsuit during his Thursday morning radio show on KPEL 96.5 FM. After a caller asked who is footing the bill for overtime work by law enforcement responding to these kind of events. We will always take these threats seriously, Guillory said during the segment, but we're not just going to respond and say, okay, thank you, let us pay all this overtime from the taxpayers. Heck no, we will stop at no cost, or we will stop at no measure to recoup the costs that taxpayers have to pay for this kind of stuff. Throughout the radio segment, Guillory repeated the message, our community will not tolerate civil unrest. Demonstrators from Lafayette and the surrounding area have clashed with Guillory and other local officials after Lafayette police fatally shot Pellerin on August 21st at a gas station along Northwest Evangeline Thruway. Louisiana State Police investigators said Pellerin was armed with a knife and was approaching the door of the convenience store when he was shot. Officers had trailed him for a half mile after responding to a disturbance call and deploying stun guns, which were ineffective, the state police said. Several protests have since taken place across the city, with some of those ending in confrontations between demonstrators and law enforcement. Merrifield's first satirical event, Antifa Takes River Ranch, was posted to Facebook in July before protests against police brutality and racial inequality hit so close to home. The fake event had its intended effect by prompting a counter-protest event by the right-side millennial, according to the lawsuit. Concerned residents flooded Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government with phone calls, the lawsuit says. The Lafayette Police Department and Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office were forced to investigate the event. Law enforcement and the Lafayette Mayor President urged individuals to allow law enforcement to handle the situation. The hoax continued to be believed and spread, the lawsuit states, so the city parish government was forced to take responsive action to protect people and property out of fear that armed protesters and Antifa-inspired agitators would appear. Antifa, which is short for anti-fascist, is an umbrella description for the far left-leaning militant groups that resist neo-Nazis and white supremacists at demonstrations and other events. Merrifield created another fake event, Antifa Takes the Acadiana Mall, which was scheduled to happen on this past Saturday. The mall closed early that day, and more than 30 police units were in the parking lot at the scheduled start time for the Facebook event. The lawsuit says Merrifield gleefully followed the coverage of these events and seemed to take the pride in his trolling. The suit also alleges that Merrifield had sought to profit off the havoc he created, though, through creating and selling an Acadiana Antifa flag, which incorporates Antifa symbols into the Acadiana flag. Merrifield had denied that claim, saying the proceeds from sales of the flag and other merchandise had actually been used to compensate all employees who reached out to him in frustration over lost wages because of Saturday's event. Early this week, after the lawsuit was filed, but before Merrifield learned of it, he created another satirical event, Antifa Takes Laura. This time, the Facebook event's location is Lafayette City Hall. Merrifield said his end goal for these events and his work in general is to see residents of his hometown vote Guillory and members of the city and parish councils out of office during the next election. Although he's lived in New York City for about 3 years, Merrifield is a Lafayette native. He has a popular Facebook group for Cajun memes, along with a comedy company called Oof. I've had my finger on the pulse of Lafayette this entire time, Merrifield said. Most of the people I care most about and love the most are here in Lafayette, Louisiana, and so these things that happen there are affecting me because they affect the people I care about. The lawsuit mentions Merrifield's own mother believed one of the hoax events was real and shared it with others in Lafayette even after local authorities debunked it. Merrifield declined to comment on how this has affected his relationship with his mother, simply saying, "Tell them they can leave my mama out of it." Okay, next story. Okay. Some Hymen Museum salaries restored. Lafayette City Parish Councils to vote on proposed budget September 17th by Claire Taylor, staff writer. The Lafayette City Parish Councils on Thursday agreed to restore salaries for some employees of the Lafayette Science Museum and the Hymen Performing Arts Center for the 2020-21 fiscal year that begins November 1st. The changes did not fully restore funding to the museum or art center or all the employees laid off this year. The councils made the changes during a wrap-up meeting to iron out disagreements in the proposed 2020-21 budget. Funding for the Hymen Center and the Science Museum will be approved with final adoption of the budget scheduled for 5:30 p.m. September 17th. A separate vote will be needed September 17th to restore some funding to the Parks and Rec Department for the 4 recreation centers and some of the 37 departmental employees laid off in August. Councilman Glenn Lazard, who was absent Tuesday because of health reasons, had requested $3.5 million from the city general fund to restore cuts that led to the closure of the centers and the laying off of the employees. Instead, on Tuesday, the councils moved to restore $370,000 for some parks and recreation employees. Councilwoman Liz Hebert said Lazar's measure did not appear to have council support. Some council members are working with Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory's administration to determine the minimum staff needed to operate the 4 rec centers, Hymen Center and Science Museum, to get through the pandemic. It wouldn't be fair, Hebert said, to restore all 37 employees laid off in parks and recreation and not the 101 employees laid off this year. Guillory made cuts to current operations and laid off 101 employees, citing lost sales tax revenue from businesses closed due to the governor's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He further slashed expenses in the proposed 2020-21 budget based on scale-back revenue estimates. But Chief Financial Officer Lori Toops on Thursday made adjustments to the city's budget based on actual sales tax receipts during the pandemic, which were higher than projected in the budget, and reduced property tax receipts in the budget since property values fell 4.4% this year. Parks and Rec funding caused conflict between the two councils at a previous budget meeting. All Parks and Rec funding in the 2020-21 budget comes from city taxpayers, but the department is a parish department. Parish council members wanted to vote on Parks and Rec decisions, but the city council objected, citing the homeroom charter amended in 2018 to give the city more control over how city tax dollars are spent. Thursday's agreement to transfer $300,000 to the Science Museum from parish grade funds represents a compromise between the two councils, which were created with the 2018 charter amendment. This is the first budget being considered by two councils since the city and parish were consolidated in 1996. City Councilwoman Annette Cook earlier asked to use the full $890,000 balance in the CREATE fund, but the councils and administrative settled on $300,000 to employ 2 science museum curators and a contract development director to work with the museum's foundation to raise money and market the facility. Guillory's proposed budget already contains money for a museum director and utilities. At the Hymen Center, the councils added $130,000 from the city general fund for a total of $230,000 to employ a full-time maintenance foreman, with the rest of the money to be used for temporary workers as needed to repair and operate the facility, which shows when shows can resume post-pandemic. Contracts are being signed for events at the Hymen Center. ABR said Mardi Gras crews that previously signed contracts are getting hit with a 61% increase in costs due to the cutbacks by the city. The city is passing costs along to clients due to budget cuts and layoffs. Okay, and now it's our half-hour break, so we're going to look at the day in history, and then zodiacal horoscope and the funerals in the Acadiana area for today. Today is Friday, September 4th, the 248th day of 2020. There are potentially 118 shopping days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on September 4th, 1781, Los Angeles was founded by Spanish settlers under the leadership of Governor Felipe de Neve. On this date in 1888, George Eastman received a patent for his roll film box camera and registered his trademark Kodak. 1944, during World War II, British troops liberated Antwerp, Belgium. In 1957, Arkansas Governor Orville Thalbus used Arkansas National Guardsmen to prevent 9 black students from entering all-white Central High School in Little Rock. Also on this date, Ford Motor Company began selling its ill-fated Edsel. In 1974, the United States established diplomatic relations with East Germany. 1988, Internet services company Google filed for incorporation in California. In 1999, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat signed a breakthrough land for security agreement during a ceremony in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. In 2006, crocodile hunter Steve Irwin, 44, died after a stingray's barb pierced his chest. In 2018, Amazon became the second publicly traded company to reach $1 trillion in market value, following closely behind Apple. 10 years ago, protesters hurled shoes and eggs at Tony Blair in Dublin, Ireland, as he held the first public signing of his memoir as British Prime Minister amid high security. 5 years ago, hosting Saudi Arabia's new monarch for the first time, President Barack Obama said the U.S. shared King Salman's desire for an inclusive, functioning government in Yemen. Their talks also addressed the Iran nuclear deal, a source of lingering tension, and the U.S.-Saudi relationship. 1 year ago, during an Oval Office meeting, President Donald Trump displayed a map of the national hurricane forecast for nearly a week earlier that showed that Hurricane Dorian could track over Florida. The map included what appeared to be a hand-drawn half circle that extended the cone of uncertainty over parts of Alabama. Trump had been publicly corrected by the National Weather Service after he had tweeted that Alabama would be among the states that would likely be hit harder than anticipated. Looking at today's birthday, actor Mitzi Gaynor is 89 years old. Singer Meryl Bubba Knight from Gladys Knight and the Pips is 78. World Golf Hall of Famer Raymond Floyd is 78 today. Rhythm and blues musician Ronald LaPriade is 70. Rock musician Martin Chambers from the Pretenders is 69. Actor Candy Alexander is 63. Actor comedian Damon Wayans Sr. is 60. Actor Noah Taylor is 51. Pop rock singer, DJ, and musician and producer Mark Ronson is 45. Let's see who else we got here. Singer Beyonce. Go Beyonce. She's 39 years old today. And actor comedian Kyle Mooney from Saturday Night Live is 36 years old today. Looking at the zodiac or the horoscope, if you're a Virgo like myself, you can concentrate on making changes that will bring you peace of mind and improve your life. Strive to keep the peace without sacrificing your own goals. If you're a Libra, look over personal papers and update anything in need of it. A change that will lower your expenses will put your mind at ease. Take better care of your health and physical well-being. If you're a Scorpio, a change will be good for your morale. Think about who you like to spend time with and the activities that bring you the most joy. Be honest with yourself as well as others. Take on projects. If you're a Sagittarius, take on projects that will help you cut your overhead or improve your home. Refuse to get caught in someone else's plans because of focusing on what you want to happen. Being a Capricorn, think twice before you engage in an emotional battle with a loved one. Listen, be patient, and try to find a workable solution. Getting along will be far less stressful in the end. Aquarius, put your heart into whatever you do. Focus on making money and handling your finances properly. Take extra precautions when in public. Pisces, be careful what you agree to when asked for help. Make suggestions rather than donating your time or cash. Spend more time with a loved one who brings out the best in you. Aries, being argumentative or pushy won't help you get your way. Be helpful, understanding, and willing to work with others. Take care of your health and physical well-being and avoid risk. Taurus, plan carefully, adhere to a budget, and don't promise more than you can deliver. Don't let yourself get caught in something that may be harmful to you emotionally or physically. Gemini, strive to get things done on time. Consider what you want and how to go about getting it without taking a risk. Patience and truth will be required if you want to avoid uncertainty. Cancer, keep your emotions in check. If you overreact or take on too much, you'll regret it. Making home improvements and dealing with contracts and personal finances will improve your life. And finally, Leo, keep an open mind and learn from experience. Be willing to do the work yourself to achieve your objective. If you rely on someone or you follow instead of lead, you will have to backtrack. And as always, the horoscope is an entertainment feature not based on scientific fact. Looking at the funerals in the Kitty area for today, Dorothy Blanchard, Del Home Chapel of Flowers at 3 p.m., Joseph Lovell Jr., David or Debbie Funeral Home Chapel at 2:30 p.m., Nancy Tabb at the Fountain Memorial Funeral Home in Lafayette at 11 a.m., Mabel Touche, Holy Family Mausoleum, 2807 Curtis Lane in New Iberia at 10 a.m., and Dr. Fugmir Vlasic, Martin and Castillo's La Fleur de Lis Chapel in Lafayette at 2 p.m. Okay, and usually on Fridays I try to get to a story of entertainment, and I do have one in particular today. It's called Loud and Clear, A Treasured Simon Dirk Powell Steps to the Light by John Wirt, contributing writer. Lafayette's Dirk Powell often plays a role of a remarkably versatile band member. A multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter, and producer, his supporting player work have included Eric Clapton, Loretta Lynn, Linda Ronstadt, Jack White, Levon Helm from the band, and folk music star Joan Baez. Powell lists transformative roots musician Rihanna Giddens among his closest collaborators. In addition to performing with Giddens, he produced a 2017 solo album, Freedom Highway, and co-produced songs of Our Native Daughters, her 2019 collaboration with Layla McCullough, Allison Russell, and Amthis Kia. I don't always make music with people who always take something I bring a step higher, Powell said last week. She's one of the most rewarding creative connections in my life. An artist in his own right, Powell steps to the forefront with When I Wait for You, his first solo album in 6 years. Powell recorded the album to release Friday at his recording studio in Breaux Bridge. On the banks of Bayou Teche, the Cypress House incorporates cypress walls from a circa 1850 Creole cottage. That room has a great feeling, Powell said. It's as if a lot of stories entered the wood and are ready to come out. Some of those feelings, when they resonate, I try to honor and respect them. When I Wait for You features 12 Powell's original compositions and his rendition of a traditional song he loves called Silk Merchant's Daughter. His studio guest stars include Giddens, Sarah Watkins from Nickel Creek, and his daughters Sophie and Amelia. Three of Powell's musician friends from England and Scotland, Donald Shaw, co-producer on accordion and piano, Michael McGoldrick, flute, whistle, and bodhrán, and John McCusker, fiddle, give the album plaintive Celtic soul. Traveling from the United Kingdom to record with Powell in Breaux Bridge, the trio likewise was affected by Acadiana. Their music almost immediately took on a slightly different swing, Powell said, got a little slower and had more of a sultry feeling to it. There's also a natural connection between southwest Louisiana and Celtic lands, such as Ireland. Both places have a soul that exists as if it were almost human, Powell claimed. And most of the Irish people I know who've been to Louisiana, they feel more at home here than in any other part of the U.S. Shaw, McGoldrick, and McCusker joined Powell in his studio in Louisiana 3 years ago. It just took a while instead of the album's gestation. It was also a matter of figuring out different kinds of songs and feelings. For 2 of the past 3 years as well, Powell was busy performing with Baez during her flurry of farewell tour dates. After traveling with the Blowing in the Wind songstress for a decade, he played the single's final roadshow in Madrid on July 28, 2019. It was beautiful to walk on stage with her every night, Powell said. I watched the audiences and saw people crying. Some of them cried because messages in the songs are tied to the civil rights movement, but her music is always the soundtrack of their lives. Although Baez's songs may be nostalgic for audiences, she never seeks nostalgia. Joan inhabits the moment, Powell said. Moving to this moment, Powell's new album begins with a consoling "Everything Is All Right," composed last fall in the still dark hours of early morning. It's the last song Powell wrote for When I Wait For You. A lot of this album is music I wrote at that time of night, he said, and I want listeners to feel like they are the you in that sentence, as if I'm waiting for them. The album is largely non-topical, but Powell does make a statement with the song, I Ain't Singing Pretty Polly Anymore. It's his response to Pretty Polly, the Knoxville Girl, Rosa Lee McFall, and other murder ballads. After singing Pretty Polly for years, it's a traditional song about a woman who's stabbed to death by a man who claims to love her. Powell suddenly saw the song in a different light. I remember moments of singing songs like that and looking in my daughter's eyes, he said, I realized I didn't want to sing songs that glorify violent men. Powell's performances of I Ain't Playing Pretty Polly have inspired gratitude from victims of domestic violence. But some people say you're messing with tradition or these songs are warnings. He said, but I'm not singing those songs that handle violence against women so cavalierly anymore. I'm playing this song instead. All right. Kind of another entertainment or food-related story. A Po' Boy Fest sponsors restaurant specials for good cause by Megan Wyatt, staff writer. A special pandemic edition of the Acadiana Po' Boy Festival will bring businesses to local restaurants and funding to a local nonprofit at a time when both have been hard to come by, organizers said. Like many other in-person festivals and events, the Acadiana Po' Boy Festival and Plate Lunch of Palooza were called off early this year because of the pandemic. Social Entertainment, the event organizer, announced Tuesday that a pandemic edition of the Po' Boy Festival will take place throughout September at local restaurants. Participating restaurants include Acadian Soubrette, Black Cafe, Brodus Burgers, Central Pizza, C'est Bon Manger, Saint-Bon, Dino's Pizza, Johnson's Boucanier, Pop's Po' Boys, Poubart's Bakery, and T-Coop's Mid-City Smokehouse. 10 restaurants will offer a signature po' boy with $1 from the sale of each, benefiting Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Acadiana, the nonprofit that facilitates mentoring relationships for youth. An online art raffle will also take place during the month-long festival for a chance to win the official festival painting by local artist Trent Obery. Proceeds from the raffle will also benefit Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Earlier this year, Social Entertainment announced that the Po' Boy Festival and Plate Lunch of Palooza would be combined into a single event. The April 3rd event was canceled because of restrictions in place to slow the spread of the virus. Learn more about the pandemic edition of the Po' Boy Festival by visiting the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Acadiana Po' Boy Plate Lunch Festival. Check it out. All right, getting back into the regular news. Looking at the crime blotter for this morning, the Advocate staff reports a missing man found dead in Bayou Corte-Bleue. A Beaujeu City man's body was recovered from Bayou Corte-Bleue on Tuesday. The St. Landry Parish Sheriff's Office said the body of Clifford Broussard, 67, was found after he was reported missing over the weekend, a department statement said. Family members said Broussard was at his camp off LA 103 in Washington, repairing damages from a recent burglary, and was the last heard from by a text message about 7 p.m. Saturday. When he didn't answer the phone, a family member went to the camp Sunday and reported Broussard missing, the statement said. Sheriff's search and rescue team executed search efforts and recovered Broussard's body after a power line worker and female caller responded seeing the body Tuesday in Bayou Court Bleu, near Bada's bar, around 2:20 p.m. Broussard's body was recovered and his family was notified, the release said. Foul play is not suspected in the death, but the death remains under investigation. An autopsy is being conducted. In other crime blotter news, a woman arrested in a fatal Acadia crash. A woman involved in a fatal crash along Ebenezer Road in Acadia Parish has been arrested. The Acadia Parish Sheriff's Office reports they responded to a major crash with injuries on Ebenezer Road just after midnight on June 21st. One person was killed in that crash. Deputies say that during the investigation, evidence was obtained indicating that Shatira Shanna Perro was the driver of the vehicle involved. A warrant was obtained for Perro, and on Monday, the Abbeville Police Department executed the warrant. Perro was transported to the Acadia Parish Jail and booked on the charge of felony vehicular homicide and driving under the influence. And turning to state news, Hurricane Laura, Edwards, Louisiana hotel rooms filling up. Evacuees in Texas asked to stay there by Sam Carlin, staff writer. A week after Hurricane Laura made landfall, the number of people being sheltered by the state continued to grow. As Governor John Bel Edwards told people who are sheltering in Texas to stay there because Louisiana may not have enough hotel rooms to put up thousands of additional evacuees. The number of people in state-provided shelters or hotels grew to nearly 12,000 on Thursday. That has steadily risen as damage to homes and a lack of power or running water in large swaths of the state made an increasing number of homes uninhabitable. The storm upended life in Lake Charles and the surrounding areas, prompting hospitals and nursing homes to evacuate. The storm's death toll rose to 20 on Thursday, with most of the deaths attributed to post-storm-related injuries. Lake Charles Memorial Hospital evacuated its patients after the storm knocked out the city's water service, and on Thursday was still offering only limited emergency services, said spokesman Matt Felder. The Lake Charles Veteran Affairs Clinic sustained significant damage in the storm as well, he said, prompting officials to shutter the building and deploy mobile assets to the Ashley Furniture Company building next door, where they are offering pharmacy, primary care, mental health, and telehealth services. A program run by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to install temporary blue roofs on people's damaged homes is slated to start this weekend. Edwards said more than 2,700 homeowners have registered for the program, which is aimed at making homes suitable for living while longer-term recovery work takes place. The state has signed deals with dozens of hotels to house evacuees, with the states getting reimbursed for some of the costs from the federal government. But the governor said it will be hard to find enough hotels willing to sign those deals to house thousands of additional evacuees, saying the state doesn't commandeer hotels. The vast majority of hotels are in New Orleans, where officials are ferrying evacuees to the Ernest and Memorial Convention Center in an effort to connect them with resources. Frontline workers stipend halfway spent. State sends $250 checks to more than 95,000 in 2 months. By Mike Ballard, Capitol Bureau editor. 2 months in, and the program aimed at giving frontline workers during the pandemic a one-time $250 stipend has spent about half the money available, sending checks to 95,367 workers and rejection letters to 27,344 applicants, Louisiana Department of Revenue has reported. Department employees are waiting through another 123,993 applications, checking qualifications. The processing of frontline worker rebate applications is proceeding at a steady pace, Revenue Secretary Kimberly Robinson said on Thursday. If any applicant receives a letter from the department requesting more information, they should respond immediately so we can get the applications processed as quickly as possible. Legislators diverted about $50 million from federal coronavirus relief dollars that initially had been dedicated to helping local governments pay off costs of responding to the spread of the virus. Democratic lawmakers came up with a $250 one-time payment to help a wide variety of workers, from bus drivers to garbage collectors to grocery store clerks, people who stayed on the job while the rest of the state stayed at home. Workers qualify if they make less than $50,000 a year, are Louisiana residents, and put in at least 200 hours between March 22nd through May 14th, when the state's stay-at-home directive was in place. They also need to have been employed as of March 11th in a job deemed essential. Workers can apply at https://frontlineworkers.la.gov. Applications can be mailed or downloaded in printable form or are available, or you can call 855-307-3893. The application process for businesses began July 15th and continues through October 31st. What our residents deserve: Broussard acquires downtown property for new passive park, upgraded fire and police stations by Megan Wyatt. Broussard has taken the first steps toward upgrading its police and fire stations and revitalizing its downtown district by purchasing 10 acres and acquiring a maintenance right to the adjacent Arsenal Park. In July, Broussard purchased a 10-acre piece of property along the city's downtown corridor for $750,000. Plan is to build new police and fire departments on the land in the coming years. Last month, Broussard also took over maintenance and upkeep responsibilities at Arsenal Park, which was formerly managed by the Lafayette Consolidated Government, or LCG. The 30-acre park on Main Street once served as the city's baseball and softball hub, but has been largely unused since the Broussard Sports Complex and nearby Youngsville Sports Complex opened. To the city of Broussard, acquiring Arsenal Park is much more significant than acquiring 30 acres of land, said Broussard Mayor Ray Bork. It's about the utilization of the 10 acres that Broussard purchased this year adjacent to Arsenal Park that will serve as a location for our police and fire stations. It's deliberate planning and providing opportunity to the residents and businesses of our city. Broussard leaders are planning to take a conservative approach on both projects, but now as they determine the impact the coronavirus shutdown and oil fuel slump will have on sales tax revenues. Ultimately, the plan is to implement the ideas shared during Envision Broussard community meetings last year that culminated in the city's downtown master plan. That would involve transforming the existing baseball park into a passive park with walking trails and festival grounds for community events. Arsenal Park would also serve as a connector to make the downtown district more friendly to walkers and bikers. And let's turn to the one sports story we have for this morning to wrap up things. Napier Cajuns completely healthy across the board, says team isn't worried about Ames breakout by Kevin Foote, staff writer. UL coach Billy Napier said his football team remains free of any positive coronavirus test just a few days before the first game week of the 2020 football season begins. We're completely healthy across the board, said Napier, whose Raging Cajuns are set to open the season at 11 a.m. September 12th and number 23 Iowa State on ESPN. I'm very proud of our guys and how they've showed great discipline relative to their choices and decisions away from the building. Makes me feel really good about our plan with the building and how we're operating in meetings and walkthroughs in practice. That certainly their commitment to our team and loyalty has been impressive. Napier said he's not concerned about the news this week that Ames, Iowa is one of the two biggest hotspots in the nation for positive COVID-19 tests. We're not going to worry about anything we don't control, Napier said. We play at a certain time in a certain locale, regardless of how many people are there and what's going on in their community. We've got a very specific plan. Our guys are going to take the necessary precautions. We're going to wear our masks, wash our hands, practice really good hygiene, avoid crowds, and social distance when we can. Plus, Napier added, at one point, maybe Louisiana was one of the worst in the country, so this will just be another day at the office for us. In other sports news, senior wide receiver Brian Smith Jr. suffered a broken hip falling on a 50-50 ball in practice last Friday. It's very unfortunate because he had really begun to take a step forward and had been impressive for a couple of days, Napier said. Early in camp, Cassius Allen's name left the depth chart, having knee surgery on Wednesday. So even more than before, the spotlight continues to shine on the newcomers at wide receiver in support of projector stars Jalen Williams and Peter LeBlanc. Just makes these young players and their role even more important, Napier said. It's going to create opportunities. It's great that we signed these guys. We told them when we recruited them there would be a lot of opportunities as young players, and that's how it worked out. Okay, let's see if there's any other sports news. During the spring last year, senior center Cole Prudhomme suffered a season-ending injury. Early in training camp this year, Prudhomme began experiencing some residual effects from that surgery, limiting his ability to fully compete with Shane Vallant for the starting center spot. He's figuring out how to manage that knee, Napier said. As the year goes, I think he'll get better as the knee gets accustomed to that kind of workload. Consequently, all signs point toward the starting offensive line, including graduate transfer Zach Robertson at left tackle, Ken Marks at left guard, Vallant at center, Osiris Torrance at right guard, and Max Mitchell at right tackle. And we are a minute over our broadcast on our TV stations, but we can still be heard on our YouTube station, AOC Community Media, and our online streaming service, Cypress Street Radio, CYPRESS Street Radio. And we appreciate you tuning in. I go a little bit long on Fridays because I like to get all the news in as we're headed into the weekend. But we will be back Monday. We broadcast every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. the local news and state news and sports and anything else that fits into that hour. This is supported and contributed. Stories are from the Acadiana Advocate. We appreciate their support. As always, we appreciate you, the listeners, listening in. We try to reach out to our community of visually impaired, and we also try to reach out to our community of people who don't quite get the newspaper or don't have access to the news cycle. So we're happy to give you the service. It's free, and we appreciate you listening in every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And as always, this has been Bruce Cohen. Will always be Bruce Cohen. And as I always say, be safe and healthy and smart out there, folks. Continue to wear your mask. Continue to social distance when necessary. Please stay away from people who you haven't had contact with, because who knows, you may have the symptoms. I hope not. Hope everybody is healthy out there, but just play it smart, folks. Please wear your mask and all that stuff, and we'll get through this pandemic as quickly as we possibly can. All right? So as I always say, be kind to each other. Have a great day and a weekend. We'll see you Monday morning.